In this lecture, we're going to learn how to access the data after the instance has been initialized. In some scenarios, we may need to update the data in our app at a later time. For example, let's say we wanted to change the first name to Bob after 2 seconds. That's possible, but first, we need to store the app we created in a variable. We're going to assign the app to a variable called VM. We can call this variable whatever we want, but it's common practice to use the name VM, which is short for view model. Those two words describe Vue pretty well. The word Vue describes the HTML we have in our document. It's what the user sees when they load our app. The word model describes the data stored in our app. Vue is a framework that focuses on the view and model of an application. The phrase view model is describing the relationship that Vue establishes between the two parts of an application. This is why most examples will use the variable name VM. After the variable assignment, let's invoke the setTimeout function. We'll give it a duration of 2000 milliseconds. Inside the function, we want to change the first name to Bob. To access the data from within the instance, we'll need to set vm.firstname to Bob. Let's stop here for a moment. At first, you may be thinking, this shouldn't be possible. The first name property is inside the data object. So shouldn't this line be vm.data.firstname? Usually, yes. But Vue does something magical behind the scenes to allow you to access the first name property from the object itself directly. It saves you time from having to write a long line of code. It's a process called proxying. I'll talk about what proxies are in a moment. First, let's check to see if this works. I'm going to refresh the page again. After 2 seconds, the name will change from John to Bob. Surely enough, it does. We can use the Vue developer tools to check if the data is changing internally. According to the tools, the data has been updated correctly. This behavior is precisely what we wanted. Vue makes it incredibly easy to access the data from within the instance. Let's take a moment to talk about what's going on behind the scenes because it's important to understand. First, we have to understand what proxying is. A proxy is a figure that represents the value in a calculation. That's the official definition. Let me break down what that means in relation to Vue. When Vue is initialized, it'll store your data in a property called $data. Therefore, to get the first name, we can use the following: vm.$data.firstname. This line will return the first name from the data object. The problem with this approach is that we have to type quite a bit of code to get the data. It isn't that annoying, but it can be simplified. Vue simplifies the code you have to write by creating proxy getters and setters. They're merely functions that'll take care of grabbing or updating the actual data. This feature keeps your code readable and straightforward. It's done behind the scenes for you. We can access the data directly from the object rather than access it through the $data object. Vue is capable of calling the correct functions that'll access or update the data. The purpose of this is to make it convenient for you, the developer. Proxying is something you never have to worry about setting up. It's a feature built into Vue. This proxying feature is one of the reasons why developers love Vue so much. It's almost like magic. Let's take a look at the code that makes this possible. I'm going to comment out the setTimeout function so that it doesn't disturb us. Then, let's switch back to the console of the developer tools in the browser. Inside the console, I'm going to log the VM variable. We will be able to see the contents because it's a global variable. Right away, there will be a lot of properties and methods defined in the object. Most key names start with either a $sign or underscore. As a side note, Vue likes to assign its own properties with these characters as a way to let the developer know their name's reserved by Vue. You shouldn't try to override these properties. Getting right back on track, scroll down to the very bottom. We want to search for something called getFirstName. View creates a set of getters and setters for every data property we create. They are proxy functions that take care of retrieving or updating your data properties. Whenever we type vm.firstname, the corresponding proxy function is called, which will get the actual value for you. Same thing for when you're updating a value. You can think of a proxy as a middleman for your data. Proxies work straight out of the box. You don't have to worry about setting it up or executing any additional code to get it to work. By using proxies, our Vue data is exposed directly from the object. That's one of the brilliant things about Vue. It allows you to keep your code simple and readable. We don't have to dive into the object to search for our data. Don't worry about all the nitty-gritty details. It's more important you understand the overall theory. Vue is here to make our lives easier. I wanted to discuss some of the theory behind it to get a better understanding of what's going on. That wraps it up for this lecture. We'll continue in the next one.